My next step after mounting these ESCs is going to be to solder them onto the power distribution board. And once I've soldered them onto the power distribution board, I want to mount the power distribution board inside here. And I've done some thinking, and the way that I have decided to do it is, once I have everything soldered up, I'm going to take this little board from the other side, and that's going to get mounted in again. But as part of that mounting, I'm going to include the board, the power distribution board, which will then fit in there, and the holes align pretty well, and I will be able to get it in there. My only concern is that it is exposed on the bottom, and after some additional thinking, I came up with the idea to then cut out from this ABS plastic a piece that is going to be exactly the same size and should protect it, rather than trying to paste or stick anything over that, because should any soldering later be required for replacing an ESC, etc., etc., then that can be achieved without a lot of gunk all over the power distribution board. Right, but yeah, that's my thinking, and that is going to be my next step. I'm going to take this one side. Now, to get these holes and everything aligned, I've chosen this piece of ABS plastic. Now, the one corner, fortunately, let's just see which corner I did figure that. Oh, this corner is already pretty square, and I'm going to make it exactly the same size. I'm going to try and get holes the same size, etc. I'm going to be using my trusty piece of press stick I still have here, or poster tack as it's known in some countries. In South Africa we call it press stick, and I'm going to use that in the center just to hold it down, and I'm going to be marking the holes using a paint marker. Now, I don't know where you are in the world, it would obviously depend. I'm using a black piece of plastic, and but I suppose you can use any color you like. But on black on black, if you use a Sharpie, it doesn't quite work that well. There we go. This is just to mark it out. It can be slightly larger. Let's see, I'm going to use something very small. If I have, there I have something that I can mark them with. And these I will later be drilling. Let me just get my screwdriver to 3mm, because I know those holes that fit through there are 3mm. So I'm just going to be marking these as much as center as possible. There we go. That leaves a nice mark. Okay, now the next thing is just to cut that out. A little, if you have something else to cut them with, by all means. Right, and do we have our nice piece of square plastic, fairly. And that's just going to mount on that. Let's just see how that would look. If that was on top, that would fit there, and yes, you'd obviously have the piece of carbon fiber between that, and that'll protect it pretty well, I think. There we go. Okay, I'm just going to go drill these holes quickly, and I'll be back in a couple of minutes. I've now drilled these holes, and it looks pretty okay. It doesn't have to be super professional, I don't really care. It's just to protect that whole thing. I have removed those little screws, and I've seen they are incredibly short, which is going to be a problem, because with this fitted they just go through. A quick trip to our local RC hobby shop, and there we have our longer 3mm hex head screw. and these are going to be perfect. And yeah, problem solved. I'm not going to be using the plastic screws or the nylon ones. I'm going to put that back in there. I've confirmed that they do turn in there, so I'm very happy. I'm going to put this one side because obviously my next step is going to be working on getting this power distribution board all soldered up. But the first thing I'm going to do before I get to that is, this is 14 gauge wire which I will be using for my battery connection. It's a pretty decent wire, silicone coated wire, and it's 14 gauge, rated at 200 degrees Celsius, so it can handle quite a bit of heat. And I have my XT60 plug here, and yes, that needs to, I need that side. This is called the this is actually the male side, this is the female side, because that is a recess and this actually fits into that. And yeah, that's nice to have spare. And we also have some heat shrink there. So before I start with that, I'm going to cut myself a piece of cable here. I'm going to make it fairly long, let's say about 20 centimeters, so that I can feed the cable wherever I need it, where I decide to have the battery or batteries. And yes, let's get to that. Okay, first things first, let's put that one side for now. I'm going to cut these cables at the same time. Now I've got extra length, and that to me feels about the correct length. I'm not going to measure this out exactly. I feel that that is going to be more than enough length for me to work with my cables. Okay, so I've marked both, cut them through. Right, and the rest of my cable I'm going to put back into the packet for other projects. Stripped of 5 centimeters. Now that is all we're going to need for the board side. I'm probably going to be clipping off a little bit of that anyway. It's going to be sticking out, solder it on, clipping off the excess. Okay, so that's one side for the board, other side for the board. I'll tin those up. Okay, short lengths, really don't need more than that. Bring our little helping hands closer. Just to show you, I'm using 0.3 millimeter diameter, that's 0.15 inch. It's 37 lead tin mix. Soldering iron. Right, I'm just going to give that a little bit of, solder it up a little bit. Right. Heat up the wire. And okay, and that's good. That's one. There we go. We don't need more than that. Perfect. I'm happy with that. Put that one side. Now the next thing, we go over to the battery connector, and now interestingly, the XT60s are already marked, so you know that's negative and you know that's positive on that side. Let me just show you on the close view on this camera. On this side there's a little negative marking, and on this side there's a little positive marking, so you know red goes on positive and black goes on the negative. Now these holes I have in here are approximately 1 centimeter. Don't ask me what that is in inches. In South Africa we use the metric system, so yeah. Right, so I'm going to measure out approximately 1 centimeter, or 10 millimeters. Right, that's quite a bit of length. Twist that up so it's nicely ready. Right, let's tin them up quickly. helping hands closer again. Right, there we go. Next trick. Right, we're going to be doing the negative one first, because that's at the front, and that's going to fit in like that. Right, now I'm going to take a little piece of solder like this, approximately that length, cut it off. Take it around like this, fold it once and fold it again, give it a little bit of a twist, and I'm going to pop that in there. Nope, it's a little too long. That's not a problem. That little excess that sticks out at the top, clip that off. Right. And here comes the trick. Okay. Now, we've got that little piece in there. I'm heating the connector and feeding in more solder. Heating up the wire. There we go. I'm happy with that. And once that cools, that grips like crazy. It's not going to go anywhere. Okay, you don't want to put on your heat shrink right now because this is hot, and if you put your heat shrink on immediately, then it's going to shrink before it gets to the end of the connector. Right, let's do this side. I'm going to use exactly the same trick. Cut off a piece. It's just that the reason I do this is just because sometimes you get little bubbles and things in the inside which don't always seal up with you trying to feed solder in, and this just takes care of that little problem. Alright. Solder is inexpensive, so yeah. Put that one in there. It's nicely to length. Yeah. That's a very nice connection. I love that. I just want to show you close up how nicely that actually comes out. Here you can see the connections actually come out pretty decent. There's a recess inside there, and I like to squeeze my heat shrink into that recess, as much of it as possible. Right, okay, I'm going to do the one first and then I'll do the second one. If you're using good quality heat shrink and silicone wire, the silicone wire can actually handle quite a bit of heat, so you don't have a problem. That's pretty good there as well. Keep a little bit of pressure on it on this side, and let's shrink that one. And there we go, guys. There we have an XT60 connector, which I feel is pretty well done. I'm happy with that. All of these have been pre-tinned already. I tinned them earlier, so they're pretty much ready to go. There's no oxidization. I've already I used some electro cleaner to clean them off, so we are ready to go. Now you want to make sure when you do start the soldering that you are touching both your wire and your connection and feed the solder between the two until you have, I'll keep it there for a second, and that is good. Let's check it on the other side. Bled through nicely. I'm happy, and that is our cable connected. I'm going to be feeding all the others through on the same way for the ESCs. Right guys, I'm ready to solder the first ESC. I'm probably going to show you how I solder one, because really showing you how I solder every one of them is redundant. If you've seen one, you'll see them all. And it's basically a process of just follow the wires, black on negative, red on positive, and just solder them nicely. When you do solder, make sure you have tinned your soldering iron. Make sure you connect on your soldering iron to both the connector, which I've already pre-tinned, as well as your wire, which should also be pre-tinned. So you touch both and then just add your solder until you have just enough to seal it in. On this type of board, it is a flow through, and I just check on the other side. Yes, it's bled through perfectly, and I am happy with that connection. And that is it. Now let's do the positive cable as well. I like using my helping hands just to keep these in place, because you don't want them skipping out or popping out. And while you're soldering, see for instance like this, now it's a little loose, and you want to make sure it pushes nicely through and it stays there, like there. Okay. Let's make sure our soldering iron. This is a very old soldering iron, and the tip is already a little messed up, but you know, it still works for me, and I'm happy with it. I've grown so used to it that I think a new soldering iron is actually going to be difficult for me to adapt to again. That's not quite enough solder. I'll just add a little more. And there you go. Right, I've soldered those on, and I'm happy. And that is it. It's a nice, neat solder. Not too much solder, not too little. It bleeds through the board quite nicely on this side, and that is not going to go anywhere. Right, don't put on a hump of solder. That's just way too much. This that you have here, I feel, is really sufficient for what you need. Okay, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to finish them all up. Once I'm done, I'll be back with you. And there we have it. We have all of our ESCs connected to our power distribution board, and the last thing remaining is to get our little uBEC soldered onto there as well. Now the wires on this aren't too clean, so I'm just going to clean them. I'm going to tin them, and I am going to solder them in there. Let's just solder the uBEC in there. And there we go. Guys, I'm happy with that. Now what I'm thinking now, perhaps what I should do is just add additional wire to that for auxiliaries which come off here, which can run directly from the battery, or if I wish to add anything else voltage related, I do have those two auxiliary wires extra, so I'm quickly going to do that as well. And there we have it. We now have our power distribution board all soldered up. All the ESCs have been connected, and basically it's now just a cleanup process. However, what I think I want to do is just go ahead and do some testing. Now I just want to clean up this board a little bit, and let me show you what I do that with. What I have here is electro cleaner. Now this is a South African product, and I don't know what you are going to call this wherever you are in your part of the world, but it is meant for cleaning of PC boards and electronics, etc. I also have a microfiber cloth, the old one here, which I'm going to use to clean it off with. And I just spray a little bit of that on the cloth and I rub the board down. That's just for little bits of flux and all kinds of things that might have gotten in during the soldering process, and that just cleans off all that little excess, should there be any. In order to test whether we have messed up anything and make sure that everything is correct, you need a multimeter that has a continuity testing on it. And yeah, well, let me just show you. You can get them fairly cheap. You don't need a very expensive one. You just need one that's got continuity testing onto it. That basically says whether a circuit is running from one side to the other side. It'll give you a beep when that circuit is complete and it works. Now, what I'm going to do to test that is I'm going to pick any positive point, plus, and test the others. If it beeps, I know it's correctly connected. Right, I'm going to test all the negative ones as well to make sure that they do not beep. Okay, right. And we're just going to test it the other way around. So on the negative, and I test all the positives, there's no continuity there. Do bear in mind that you will actually see the figures change a little bit. That is because it picks up a bit of resistance through the circuitry of your ESC. So there's going to be some resistance, and there might be an initial tiny beep, but it soon figures out that it's not a continuous circuit. So it's not using resistance to measure this is not going to give you an accurate truth, because there is going to be some resistance across positive and negative. It's purely because there's a circuit. If this was purely wiring, there wouldn't be a circuit as such, and there shouldn't be a resistance. But since we do have circuitry here, you're going to have slight resistance. So yes, use continuity. I'm on negative, test all my negatives. They should all beep. Yes. All right, and I am happy. All my wires indicate that they are in a continuous circuit. I can switch off my tester, and I am therefore happy. We can proceed. And the next thing we're going to do is put our power distribution board into its spot that it's supposed to be way back inside there. Right, let us get this power distribution board onto its spot. These are the auxiliary wires that have power on them that I heat shrunk. How do you call it? And I'm just going to put these wires next to these ESCs, just to pass them by there, just to keep them out of the way for now, because I don't need them right now. I will probably use them later for things like my gimbal, but for now I'm just going to put them one side. Okay, now I need to pull this board down and inside there. Right, I'm happy with that. Now the next thing we need to do is try and get that plate in from the other side, and this might be a little more tricky. And squeeze it in from this side. Now we just need to get it aligned and screw it in. This is also much easier said than done. thing is, I am going to blind myself purely by the process of getting this little plate on top of here as well, which is just going to be my little cover. And yeah, to be honest, that is a bit of an exercise in let's call it acrobatics, because that really was not as easy as I thought it was going to be. And getting all of these aligned and getting the screws in and getting these tightened. I'm actually just gotten them all aligned so the screws actually turn in. I'm just tightening them down. And yes, it's not easy, but in the end we have a product which looks neat and which we can be proud of. Yeah, when you look inside you can actually still see what goes where. It's not as hidden as you might think it is. You can still easily see which wires go to which ones, and these plugs can still be disconnected and reconnected should I wish to change the direction of the motors. So yes, even though it looks very compact and very neat at the bottom, as I wanted it, it's still something that you can work on. It's not a crazy bunch of wires all over the place. So yes, I'm happy with that. And yes, let's progress on to the next step, next video. And that is how I have wired my ESCs and done the mounting of the power distribution board. If you want to see what it looks like from the top, this is still going to be, might seem a little messy, but you know, we are going to sort that out as well. There you can see the nice Taro logo inside, and there we go. It's all mounted between those two plates and all clean and neat. Right guys, see you in the next video.